Grossman is teaching in there, so we figured we'd do it this way. I'll open it up in a second, but obviously we start practice tomorrow. I mean, it's an exciting weekend here at Indiana with everything that's going on and with everything that's happening with the football team, and the fact that Ohio State comes in, and we're equally as excited because we get to start official practice. So we'll start tomorrow morning. We'll go twice tomorrow. We'll go on Saturday, and then everybody will have time to go to the game and do all of that. And with the practices starting so early, it's really important that, to me, that we continue to stay in it's still pre-season, which means your conditioning has got to continue to get better, that your strength has got to continue to get better, and we're in really good shape from where we sit right now on October 1st when it comes to our cardiovascular, when it comes to our fitness, when it comes to the way we've tried to build their bodies and the things that they've done in that situation. But you want to continue to stay on that pace. So to me, with starting it early, it's more about, let's make sure we're building up, all right, towards a timeline inside of practice rather than throwing it all out there right at the beginning, having these long endurance tested practices at the beginning, and try to make sure that we're building towards that, because October's got to be really, really important for us, because this is going to be one of maybe as challenging a November, certainly on paper, that we've had. When you look at who we play, when you look at Creighton coming here, then certainly with Maui and the potential of those teams. So what we'll try to do inside of the preseason practice, when you're not really preparing for a team specifically, is prepare concepts and prepare for strengths of teams. And that's what our staff and myself have tried to really do a good job of here over the last couple months, is not only preparing for what we want to do, but preparing for what we want to take away, and building that into our drills and building that into the mindset really as we get started with practice, and really try to make this a great month of training, of building their skills, building their endurance, but at the same time trying to get them ready for the myriad of things they're going to see as we get into the season, and max it out and keep the practices at a really good pace, at a build it up pace rather than a taper it down pace, so that we kind of do it in reverse order this year. So that's why shorter practices, sometimes twice a day, and then still get our conditioning in, still get our lifting in, all those type of things. So I'll talk about players, I'll talk about the schedule, any of those type of things. So go ahead.
Where are you health-wise?
Well, we're getting there. We don't have a team that's fully healthy, and so we'll definitely make adjustments inside of practice. But everybody is ready to start practice to the level of where they go. In the case of James has been going full tilt, but he missed a lot. But he's out there able to go full go. He's just still got a ways to go, and building his body back up, because he did a great job of getting stronger, and he even did a great job of getting stronger when he was dealing with the injury. But getting that rhythm, getting that timing, and the one thing we have not done a lot of is they've played some pickup games, but we're not a huge, let's make sure we're playing as much basketball as we can play, because what happens is a lot of those things become, now you're taking away bad habits, when the coaches aren't there. And we want to build good habits, and that's what the drills, and you hope that's happening in the pickup games. But we've done very little full court since September 15th, when we were able to put the whole team together. We've done a lot more smaller group workouts, just a couple of workouts where the whole team has been there. But with James and with the other guys, it's a matter of building them up. It's a long season, it's a long process, taking it every day for what it is, and having great communication with Tim Garl, with Dr. Rink, Dr. Alfeld, and planning accordingly. Nothing different than what we've done in the past. Sometimes this guy will go this long, sometimes this guy will only do half court, and the whole goal is to get them as healthy as they can be as we get ready to start the season. But we'll have a full team. Nobody will be standing on the sideline not being able to participate tomorrow other than Josh Newkirk. And we've tried to be extremely creative in our workouts with him. And even though he can really move only in a short space, hopefully he feels like his fundamentals are getting a lot better inside of that. And we'll be anxiously awaiting him to be able to do more as every week goes on. And but him coming in and getting better, improving his game, building his leadership already, those things have been good for us. So that's the only one that won't be able to go all the way.
What's, I guess, if
feels like the last couple of years we've talked about youth, we've talked about young guys playing in big spots. I know there will be some new guys and some young guys probably in the rotation this year, but as a whole, this is the most experienced team you've had in probably 3 or 4 years. Just kind of what's different about a preseason when you have more time and when you have that kind of experience returning?
Well, again, it's experience. It's not the team that we had in 2013 that had the 1,000-point plus scores that ended up in it. But we do have guys that have gone through it now. So it's a matter of, do they really have an understanding? And that's where Robert and James are big, because they're only sophomores, right? They played an awful lot of games and an awful lot of minutes as freshmen, but they're only sophomores. So what is their decision-making process? Like, those things are really, really important. Our young guys, in the case of Thomas, Joanno, G, those guys they've got to be able to help us, especially with the loss of Emmett. I mean, Emmett was a guy that would have been, I definitely was projecting at least a top 8 situation for him and potential starter, based on what he did last year. And he was having a great spring and summer. So with that being said, that pushes the freshmen up the ladder that much quicker, in the sense of them having to really get an understanding. And so that stuff's important. I think every experience that they can go through, whether they're freshmen, whether they're sophomore, whether it's Troy continuing to build on his decision-making role. Colin Hartman's been with us the longest. When you look at his commitment time in high school and the time that he's been here, can he continue to take the next step? And can our seniors be real seniors? And even Max, who's got a lot of potential, a lot of natural qualities of leadership, a lot of strength. I mean, here's a guy that in 7 weeks increased his vertical jump 5 inches. I mean, Thomas Bryant taking his vertical in 7 weeks to 9 inches is unlike anything I've ever seen. It really is. I mean, we've had guys that have been here 4 years that got a lot better and didn't hit 9 inches in the 4-year period of time. But equally, Max Bielfeldt, being 22 years of age, improving the way he did with his squat and all those type of things, and his strength to be able to go up 5. So like, I say that because that's just a microcosm of how much better they can get, right? And then they're getting better athletically, and they're getting better with their skills. Well, then they've got to play that way. They've got to play that way in the decision making and all the things that come into that, and really building that shared responsibility that we're trying to have on the court and off the court. But this team has got to understand what it's going to take for them to take the next step in every area. Whether it's our shooting, whether it's our ability to penetrate and see, whether it's our break, whether it's our full court defense, half court defense, certainly the rebounding. So that's where that understanding level of how long they've been here needs to jump.
Have you been able to notice, like Troy, James, guys who went through that draft process, have you been able to notice them apply some of that feedback and kind of work on that during the summer?
Well, I just think it builds a maturity. Yeah, I think so. But I mean, it really wasn't a lot different. It just crystallizes it for them. The things that you're trying to get them to understand about decision making and not having bad defensive possessions or segments, good shots, tightening up your handle, all right, diversifying your game, playing better defense throughout the game. All those things that you talk about that are there, that you see on film, it just crystallizes it for them, that other people that really matter are seeing the same thing. So I think that's where the maturity level comes in. And they build a maturity level inside of that to say that it just gets them that much closer to a place where they say, this is for real. And it's not only what my coach is saying or what my old coach said. I mean, this is for real. And this is what the future says. So I don't think there's any question that plays into it. And all 3 of those guys have done a fantastic job of building on their season when it comes to spring, summer, and fall, without a doubt, whether it's their body, whether it's their work ethic. Troy's still got a ways to go to being one of those guys that you would call him one of the most committed workers when it comes to extra work. But he's also one of the guys that improves the fastest on our team because he really is growing up. So they had really good summers. James even got stronger, like I said earlier, when he went through the injury. Even though he missed some basketball, he got stronger with it. So I think that's definitely helped. I really do.
What all has James been able to do, and where have you seen him grow this offseason?
Well, he's not as he lost a little bit of the fundamentals with how quick he's got to be with the basketball. It's in his hands a lot in our workouts, and it's when we work out, we're playing anywhere from a half to 3/4 court when it's live. So it's not just start the offense at the top of the key and let's go make a pass and cut. And it's the same thing when we've gone up and down. We want to apply pressure. We want him to be able to deal with pressure. And I think that's one of the biggest things that he's got to make the jump on is the decision making with speed under pressure, if he's going to have the ball in his hands more. But I think he's getting better at different things that we're trying to do with creating space off screens, creating space off handoffs. His shot has been, I'd say, not normal James Blackman shooting at this point. I think that's a product of him being out for as long as he was, but I don't have any concerns about that. But he's come back with no fear. I mean, he's come back on the attack, and it's the mental part of playing through things, the decision making, time and time again, that really's got to make the jump for him as we start getting into live, day-to-day practice, and at the same time being really comfortable with what he does. And then the biggest turn has got to be how much better he's going to be. He's got an awareness more and more defensively right now. And it's been in, shorter pockets of time. It hasn't been over, game to game or day to day yet. But I'm hopeful that he understands that's going to have a lot to do with his playing time this year. The decision making and the defense. The defense and the ability to play the right way defensively is going to have a lot to do with all of their playing time. I'm not big on, this guy's got to do this and this guy's got to do that and predicting starting lineups and things like that, because really it's very irrelevant. It really is. It's fun to talk about, but in theory it's a fluid deal. And right now they've got to understand those two biggest things: the decision making with the ball, when to shoot, when to pass, and how they defend. And then the people that really understand how we're going to have to rebound. We're going to change some structure of how we rebound, which is going to send the guards even more in random situations to the glass, especially on the offensive end. And they're going to have to adapt to that pretty quick. So we've got to make sure we're getting a lot of good results out of the hustle stats. That makes sense. Score more off of our defense, get more rebounds, things like that, 1 through 5, whoever's on the floor. Because we're really going to be able to space the floor. I mean, that's the one thing that I think you'll see over a period of time. We're going to be able to space the floor. And it's going to get to where you're going to have to guard everybody that's on the court to the three-point line. And you're going to have to honor that. Now, with that being said, we can't have a team of guys that hang at the three-point line when the shot go up. That's where there's going to be some separation. The guys that are committed to the offensive glass, the guys that are committed to the defensive glass, not for segments of a game, not for percentages of a game, but for the game. When they're in there, maximizing their minutes that way will be a huge thing.
Coach, you talked about the gains that Thomas made. What about the other two freshmen, OG and Juwan?
Tremendous strides. I think Juwan went up 130 pounds. And this is starting with the strength part. 130 pounds in the strength there, in the squat area. At least 80 pounds in the bench area. Increased his vertical by 3. OG had the second strongest legs on the team and made the biggest jump of the summer, and has improved it and is learning to play more away from the basket. So those two are really hard workers. OG fits into that Oladipo, Sheehy, Hulls mode of really being around here a lot to work on his game. And what we've got to make sure that they do is, because they're going to have to learn to play even more. We recruited them because they were versatile. And now that becomes part of the deal. They've got to be able to guard different people. Athletically, they're there, understanding-wise and the intensity of it. And again, when you're working out for 2 hours a week in basketball, you're going to get great intensity. When you're working out in conditioning and strength training, they've been fantastic. They've really jumped in there and done all that. But now the weeks go from 8 hours and whatever you do extra to 20 hours and whatever you do extra. And you've got to be able to keep that same level of intensity, that same level of endurance, and that same level of desire and determination to get better.
Tom, can this be an effective full-court pressing team? Can you?
Sure, absolutely. We've got to be able to multiply on defense. We will definitely have things where we're on the ball, pressure-wise, where we're guarding the inbounds, but we'll also be, I think the most important thing is that we build at half and three-quarter court, because we've got to get our principles down. And we were not as good as we needed to be on defense, but there were certain areas: navigating screens, anticipating screens, getting over screens at times, especially on down screens, rotating quick enough on reversals, closing out on, and when we're in a 1-on-2, being able to get to the next shooter, stunt one place, get to the next guy. So it wasn't out of lack of want to. Sometimes it was out of lack of will do. All right, and at the same time, some of it just experience. So we've got to make sure we get all that stuff down. You know, the 3-on-3 and the 4-on-4 and all the stuff, the shell drill type of stuff, that we really get an understanding for that. But at the same time, we want to bring pressure to the ball this weekend. You know, we want to start really working on that. We've not worked much past full court, picking your man up. But I don't know if we'll get into full court pressing on the ball this weekend, but by next week at some point we will. So definitely, especially we want to make, you know, everybody has a different theory on the clock, right? And what that's going to do. We have our theories on offense. You know, we'll try to see how we can do with that. But the bottom line is, no matter what the clock is, you've got to try to increase more possessions. And you increase more possessions by getting more offensive rebounds and having less turnovers. And that includes taking tough shots as being those shot turnovers that we can't have. There's no need for us to have that, because we have too many. We have too many guys that you have to honor to the three-point line in a drive and kick game. So there's no reason that we don't make that extra pass. And then the game becomes so much about open threes, plays at the rim, all right, and post-ups. And so we're making sure that we're getting those. All right, and then defensively, you've got to create possessions by being a better defensive rebounding team and creating more turnovers. And some of those turnovers come off traps. Well, some of those turnovers come off you brought fatigue to the game and created enough fatigue throughout it that decision-making process starts to drop. And that's what we want to get ourselves to. Well, we don't want to be that team, because there were times last year when we were that team. Not Yogi as much, but other guys that Yogi had to play too many minutes last year with the ball, especially at the end of games. And we took him off the ball more and more, especially in the break, to have him be the trailer, which that'll be part of what we do this year. But you've got to have numerous guys that can handle the ball against pressure and numerous guys that can apply pressure to the ball. And we want to get a team full of guys that can make the right decision and at the same time bring fatigue to the defense, on the defensive.
I think we asked about this a little bit in the summer, but now as you get ready for practice, you talk about sort of, I guess, half-court defense in particular. In your mind, going into the season, what is the balance in terms of trying to improve half-court defense between guys just individually needing to get better and just structurally maybe being able to play a little bit more straightforward because you don't have to be really creative with that 5 spot?
The structure is the awareness. So the awareness is the biggest thing. The awareness of ball you man, the awareness of, you know, the term head on a swivel, the awareness of your rotations. Some of it's technique of feet, so that would be the individual part of it, making sure our feet are aligned properly, covering space. But awareness and then just absolute desire. I mean, it really is. So that becomes, when you've got a team of guys, and again, they'll understand it as we get into it. They may not understand it the first few weeks, but they'll start to understand it as we play the games. You've got to not only guard your position, you've not only hold your own, you've got to be a great team defender. You've got to be a great support defender. You've got to be a tremendous teammate on defense. You've got to be, Max Bielfeld's a great example. I think he's going to be able to defend different things for us. Okay, I think he's going to be able, you've got 1 year with him, I think he's going to get to the point where he can do different things defensively. But if he's not a quarterback in the back line of that defense, and the ability to call out screens, and the ability to help people rotate, and the ability to cover ground in a short space, we won't be as good. So like, everybody's got individual things that they can improve upon, but it all comes down to our awareness and our communication as a team. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's going to be the biggest difference between Rob Johnson, the freshman, and Rob Johnson, the sophomore?
Decision making, better speed with the ball, getting it up the court quicker, playing without the ball, maybe even bigger than that. Playing without the ball underneath the elbows. And being able to cut and move with it, because he's a 39% three-point shooter last year, who I didn't think shot nearly as good as he's capable of shooting. And he's made a lot of strides in his improvement of his shooting, especially with the way he lands, because he's a jump shooter. And a lot of times jump shooters have a tough landing spot, and he's really worked on landing in the right place, which is really just a little bit forward. We work off both feet, work off both hands, drop both shoulders, all those type of things. So in that case, being better with his left hand is going to be big. But being able to decipher situations, concepts, decision making even quicker at an even faster pace, if that makes sense. Play even faster. But it also having him be able to play equally as well without the ball, so that he can get into situations where he's going to get easier shots. And I think he's improved athletically, so I think that'll come into it. but then he's just got to be an absolute terror on defense, whether it's in the full court, whether it's on the ball in the half court, or whether it's his awareness off the ball.
Your access to Assembly Hall, has it been not an issue with the renovations? And how
Well, this is fantastic. This is why this is here, right? I mean, it's here for a lot of reasons, but this is when you realize, again, I don't think anybody even thinks about it, and I appreciate it. But these guys, this is all they know, right? I mean, the first couple groups, this wasn't all they knew, but this is all they know. So it's been good. It's been really good. But we'll move it around a little bit. You know, I'm definitely concerned about not being in an arena type environments, because we practice at least 95% of our time for our practices in Assembly Hall, and so we don't have that. So you just you do the best, and my hope is that we're ready to be in there when Hoosier Hysteria comes. And but a lot of things can change, right? I mean, they're in a. It's certainly not for lack of work. I mean, those people. I was through there yesterday or 2 days ago, walking through into the other part. I mean, they are working. It seems like it's around the clock. It really does, and they're putting in way more than 12, 14-hour days out there. I mean, they're doing a fantastic job with it. So I know it's moving, but things can change, right? I mean, all you need is for one thing to go wrong in there, and then all of a sudden you're so we have to have a contingency plan for that, I guess is what I'm saying. And that's, as a coach, that's what I think about. But these guys, they're just happy they can get in here 24/7 and get better. And that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Coach, thank you for your time.
Good. Anything else?
What do you hope your team learned from all the off-the-court things this latest round?
Shared responsibility. That and I hope that we keep getting across to them. I know people see this. Poor choices don't necessarily mean poor character. Poor choices sometimes just mean poor choices. And any parent could attest to that, and or should be able to attest to that. So, but I think the bottom line is that they've got to understand there's got to be a shared responsibility 24/7 with each other, and that's asking an awful lot, because most people really don't want to get to that place, whether they're adults or what we do for our kids, right? We feel that for our children, but most people, that's a hard thing to do. Okay, it really is, because you're asking people to really look out for one another in a lot of different ways, and that's where it becomes a family, and that's what. But that's how they become a family, and that's how they learn down the road to build on when it is time for them to be parents. You know what those things come into. So that's the biggest thing, and that the growth of that responsibility continues to grow, and have them continue to understand inside these walls that just because it gets played out the way that it does inside of this program doesn't mean that they're in an isolated situation nationally, right? But that doesn't excuse it, but it makes them, they need to understand they can be really good, and they need to understand that we're only going to be as good as our ability to deal with success and adversity, and you have to be able to deal with both of them the same way. Okay, you've got to focus, or you've got to get refocused. You've got to come out and you've got to be constantly determined to get better. You got to help your teammates get better, and you've got to have great preparation. You know, and preparation is discipline. It's all those type of things. It's spending that extra time, and it gets hard. It gets really, really easy to get bored with the process, but the ones that stick with the process the best are usually the ones that win, and the ones that deal with adversity the best are usually the ones that end up winning the most, because it happens, and ours get played out at a different level. You know that, I know that, and the bottom line is that they've got to continue to grow from that the right way, and I think they're definitely working at that. But I mean, they're young men. They're young men. Things could change tonight. They could change tomorrow night. They could change next week. And any parent or anybody that's been around children for any point of time, anybody that's been an employer, I mean, they should be able to identify with that. And I hope they do, because this team is really working hard to get better. Anything else? Okay. All right. See you soon.
Guys.